Hi, my name is Fasika and welcome to another episode of Say It Loud. Today we're going to be discussing religion. So religion is often a shield away from topic. It's controversial and sensitive, but it's still a foundational part of our society. Constructs such as marriage, education, and even the calendar that we follow all come from religion. And this is no different for Black people and Africans. Africa is the only continent in the world with a Muslim majority and is the only place where the Catholic Church is continuing to see significant growth. Religion has also played a significant role in shaping our culture, for example, African American gospel music. So whilst religion is definitely something significant to us all, many argue that it's the reason behind many of our problems. Most Africans practice a faith that was brought by colonialism or slavery, and some feel that we are simply carrying our oppressors' indoctrination. You could say the same about Indigenous peoples, many of whom were held in Christian-run protection camps and orphanages, where they were abused and taught that they were inherently inferior. On the other hand, however, religion has been at the forefront of many Black liberation movements, with leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X being the face of American civil rights campaigns, with both Christianity and Islam playing significant roles. Even South Africa's Mandela grew up as a practicing Christian. So with such compelling arguments on both sides, it can be hard to know where you stand. But today on the panel, I have with me on my far right, Shola. I've got the beautiful Vanessa. We've got Ring here on my right. I've got Idil, Chris, and Kaiya. So Chris, I'd like to start with you.
Yep.
I'd like to ask, do your views on religion differ from your parents? And if they do, are your parents accepting of this?
They do differ quite significantly, where both my parents are heavily Christian, and I'm basically a lapsed Christian or atheist. And they are accepted on my viewpoint. I think my dad sort of doesn't necessarily impose it, but he does try to sort of reinforce, Christianity back into my life. But no, thank you.
So Kaiya, you are both Ghanaian and Torres Strait Islander. Do you know anything about pre-colonial religious practices of Indigenous people? And do you think that it has a place in modern society?
Yeah, I do. I think Aboriginal spirituality has a tremendous amount to offer humanity as a whole. I think with the new geological age that we're moving into, you'll find a lot of Aboriginal academics are actually intellectualizing about the Anthropocene and how human activity has irreversibly changed the planet. This is where I think Aboriginal spiritual practice is detrimental to the whole of the global world. I think one of the major things people need to remember when they think of Aboriginal religions, or any Indigenous peoples for that matter, because there's fairly similar traits that go across all Indigenous cultures and their religious practice. The gift of, sustainable living, the interconnectedness of everything, respect for everyone and everything in the earth, respect for our elders. As the world changes its composition in the next 200 plus years, we're going to need to know how to survive through that, how that's going to change our relationships to even, the social order.
Yep.
Aboriginal people have amazing wealth of knowledge there, and it's all in their religious practice, which shouldn't just be thought. The dream time isn't just this foreign concept. It's a philosophical basis.
Right.
Yeah, so I'd encourage everyone to get more acquainted with that.
Right. So Vanessa, regardless of what religion or part of the continent they're from, Black people are known as being fiercely spiritual. Do you think that this is a strength or a weakness?
Well, I personally identify as a Christian.
Right.
I've always been to religious schools. I've grown up with quite a strong faith and belief in God. So I definitely think religion is a beautiful thing. And in Africa, I think religion itself is quite peaceful. When religion is untouched and in its natural form, it's extremely powerful, and the strength and the faith that Africans or Black people showcase, especially through difficult times, it's really admirable. But of course, it's not always the case. Religion has become an institute of its own, and it's becoming a mechanism for people to use to gain power, all types of crazy power. I think it's a problem when someone is taken to, an ill person is taken to a pastor instead of a doctor.
Yeah.
And that's so common in Africa. I've had family members that have done that. Or when the church building is bigger than the community or the suburb, the poor community or suburb that it's located. And these are all weaknesses, you know, and even in Sydney, the Ghanaian community is not that big, but there's probably a minimum of 10 churches, and that's quite a lot for a small community. And, you know, over time, there's been lots of segregation, churches splitting in half. There's like 5 people in one church. Like, what's the point? It contradicts the whole purpose of religion, and all of those are weaknesses, and it kills us as a people because we're not really following the way religion should be, and it's taking away the true meaning of what it's meant to be.
Okay, yeah. Ring, do you believe that staunch religiousness causes closed-mindedness in people?
Well, it does in some sense, to some certain people, and it's all is all about how people perceive religion in their lives, and then you have the element where people become more radicalized, basically. So as Vanessa have said earlier, that people now are using religions for their own way of looking at things or doing things rather than following the religion itself.
Yeah.
So it does really cause some people. If people aren't really quite versed religiously, then those people become trapped and they become a problem to the society. That's the way I look at it.
But I don't think it's actually religion that actually radicalizes people. I think people use religion as a tool to, you know, to kind of, I guess, you know, instrument their radical ideas, or to at least, you know, vent or, you know, their frustration in whatever sense. So I don't think religion actually causes mindedness. I don't think religions in general preach closed-mindedness.
Well, can you say that's true with like the slave trade and how, you know, Christianity was used to actually...
Well, exactly, that's what I mean. Is that I don't think Christianity actually preached that, you know, that things like the slave trade were actually legitimate things. It's just people use Christianity just as the same way that people are using radical Islam. I mean,
Why do you disagree then?
I disagree. I think people, like, for example, in Australia with the stolen generations and the movement that happened here, I think really genuine good Christians, a lot of the nurses and the women, they genuinely thought that they were doing the right thing, I think. And, you know, it was an atrocity. It was part of genocide, that what they participated in, out of the fullness of their heart, thinking they were doing the right thing. Yeah. So I don't know. I think.
But I think then it's important, like in that situation, to consider that religion in those circumstances was used as a tool to usher in colonialism. Yeah. It was used as a tool to administer colonialism, not just amongst the missionaries themselves, but amongst, you know, the native people, the Aboriginal people, to where everybody thought that, you know, through the grace of God, this was the moral thing to be doing. But I don't think that's just, you know, a government or a country or, you know, an individual's distortion of that religion to, you know, to push their own agendas. I mean, it's the way that religion's been used since
if I may just
inception.
add a little bit as well, Shola, sorry for cutting you off there. Yeah. I mean, the questions become then, how do you separate the religion itself from people's actions? Exactly. When those are people who are really committing these horrific crimes, let us say, now Catholic Church recently was gripped with the child sexual abuse, and it's been going on for centuries. And you're not dealing with average people here. These are the people that were meant to look after the kids that were going to church. Yeah. And now, now in the modern world now, where we have got ISIS, we have got Boko Haram, and these people, they're killing people in the name of the religion, right? I mean, how do you separate? I mean, you can't separate the two at all.
You can, because the way you can separate is by going to the actual sources, and the way you can bring the true, you know, kind of versions, because these people, as Shola said, they're making up their own interpretations for their own agenda to do what they want to do. And then so the way to counter that is to actually say, no, this is not what this says. And I think for us that has actually been something that has been working a lot, because a lot of Muslims were taking the religion for granted, because like, we don't need to study, we don't need to do this. But now they realize, oh no, we actually do need to learn ourselves, so we can actually counter these false arguments that they're making, because they've changed a lot.
Well, Idil, do you think that religion has played a part in African people's oppression? Like, if you look at the history of religion, Christianity and Islam was brought to Africa mostly through slavery or conquering and colonialism. So do you think it's played a part?
I can't speak for Christianity, but in terms of Islam, actually, I know there's a lot of misconception that it actually came either through the sword or through the conquest or conquering. And I'm not saying that there hasn't been Muslim countries that haven't conquered some African lands, but actually the majority of the religion actually came through trade. Right. And actually Islam came to Africa on the 7th century to present, at that time it was called Abyssinia, which is present-day Ethiopia. And that actually was the time of the Prophet. And that was the first migration. Islam came to Ethiopia before it actually came to the city of the Prophet, Medina. So the Islam was there from that time, and the history was there. But later on, what happened was there was a sense of, just as Christianity, there was a sense of greed for expansion of lands, and it was not about religion at all. Yeah. So I think that misconception is there about Muslims having conquered, and it's only come through the conquest. And I don't know if Ring want to say something about that.
I think that this is a very sensitive area to be tackled, but I might speak in regard to my own country. Sudan, before the Ottoman Empire came into Sudan, it was predominantly a Christian country. And when the Ottoman came, literally our culture, where people were uprooted, churches were destroyed, and everybody else who doesn't submit to Islam, literally it was taken out from the equations. But even recently,
that's a very anti-Islamic thing to do. When the Prophet was practicing, he actually asked people to look after churches and synagogues and any other practices of people.
I like how you're trying to justify everything.
No,
but
not justify. If I might give
you, I can give you.
It's not justify. I know what Ottoman did. I know what the Ottoman did too.
To Sudan, okay.
Yeah, Sudan and other places.
Yeah. So basically, this kind of brutal way of just exterminating people continued until the modern day, until recently we have just gained our own independence. I personally, I don't look at it as Islam. It is the religions that came and really destroyed us. It's the way that people have interpreted, as you said earlier, that's led to the war that have continued for such a long time. And actually preaching was done, right, forcibly in Sudan. I personally have gone to Al-Khalwa at a very young age.
If I don't go
to the Khalwa, I can't go to school.
I was horrified to learn about that. I was horrified because one of the Christian guys.
Let me just finish the point, and then you can interject. So basically, this is something I have gone through, and as I speak to you right now, I know the Quran itself, inside and out. But the atrocities that were committed against the indigenous people in Sudan until today signify that actually the way the war that was waged against the indigenous people in Sudan, it wasn't about Islam. It's the fact that we were indigenous black people who own this very rich land.
I know.
Even though some of us have really accepted Islam, let us say, for example, Darfurian, they're all predominantly Muslim. They're all Muslim. And Omar Bashir is still killing them. So basically, and this brings me into the question where, how do you separate the religion from the action of the individuals? When individuals actually is waging the war against others or indigenous in the name of Islam.
Hi, I'm Ayallew, and today I'm taking Say It Loud to the streets to get people's perspectives on religion. So, Kaiya, what religion are you?
I'm Christian.
And growing up, was that something your parents forced or pushed you into, or was it something you became more passionate and cared about more as you got older?
I was forced into it at the beginning, but as I grew older, I understood the meaning of being a Christian. I went to church more and grew close to God.
So Mark, do you feel like religion brings us backwards or forwards as black people?
I would definitely say religion brings us forward. If I was to think about black people historically and how we come together, it's generally centered around religion, whether it be Islam, whether it be Christianity. A good example I can think of is the civil rights movement in the US. If you take the likes of Martin Luther King, heavy focus on Christianity, and the community came together based upon their focus on Christianity as well. Malcolm X was Islamic, much the same thing. The Muslim Brotherhood, or whatever they called it, they came together based upon their religion. So I would say, if you consider us today, and I consider my own context and my own experiences, I'm Ghanaian, a lot of the community comes together based upon our belief in Christianity. And so, I'd definitely say us moving forward together as a group, what brings us together, the glue, is religion, more often than not.
Taking that into consideration, many would say that because these religions, such as Christianity and Islam, are from outside of Africa, they were given to us by oppressors. Do you feel like that has relevance in terms of how we need to look at these religions, or do you feel like it doesn't matter anymore because we've moved on?
I believe it does have relevance. I mean, you have to consider that we need to find our identity pre-colonialism, definitely. We need to understand what that looked like. But to say that because it was given to us by oppressors completely invalidates its necessity or what it's done for us as a people is to disregard our own autonomy of thought. Essentially what you're saying, if because it was given to us that it's no good, or if it's not of us, you're saying that we don't have the ability to discern and tell what is good from bad. And what's brought us to this current place. You can't discredit where religion and these sorts of religions have brought us. So I don't think it is something that we should sort of put to the side or discredit.
So Denise, many Black and African people actually tend to put more faith in pastors or religious leaders as opposed to mental health experts. Do you feel like depression or mental illness can be healed by prayer alone?
Short answer is no. Long answer is, I think, goes without saying that as a religious Black person, I believe quite strongly in the power of prayer and in the importance of God throughout all aspects of your life. And I think in any difficulty that one faces, I sort of lean towards God and pray. But I think that in all things in life, there needs to be an integrated approach. So God gives us the tools to handle these problems that we face, I think, all the time. And it's up to us often to sort of look for those tools and to employ those tools. Having studied psychology and knowing a bit about depression and mental illness, I'm aware that there are often scientific causes, perhaps chemical imbalances in the brain and that kind of thing. So I think we have to sort of look for those remedies, whether it's going to the doctor, whether it's seeing a psychiatrist, whether it's even medicine itself. We have to try and combine all these different approaches to try and get the best results. But prayer is definitely fundamental and important in everything.
So Vanessa, there is a quote that says, if you want to become rich, start a church or become a pastor. And this is something that's said by a lot of Africans these days. In recent years, religious leadership has become quite lucrative. So do you feel like corruption amongst pastors and priests is something that's especially prominent amongst Africans? And if so, why?
It's definitely prominent amongst Africans. I'm speaking obviously from a West African perspective. Mm-hmm. So Ghana, Nigeria, greed, I guess, and the love, when your love for money is greater than your love for God. There's definitely misinterpretation. If I'm being honest, Africans can also be lazy. Church is definitely quick money, easy money, with the strong prevalence of Christianity in Ghana. Like, you can't walk 5 steps in Ghana without a church being somewhere around. So you can influence masses and make a crazy amount of money just off religion and the worship of God. And I guess, as you said, it's a lucrative business, and one person's doing it, the next person sees that, oh wow, this person's got a new car, this, and it just keeps passing on.
Right.
I think the trend. Sorry.
That's
I think
okay.
the trend to like pay notice to is that there is corruption in like almost every facet of. If religion isn't a business, and government is a business. If government isn't a business, and community work is a business. Like there's just so much corruption in it. Like they're just using these things as an exploitation in so many different forms that it's just
the
it's
whole
not
country is
surprising.
made up on.
But it's in Africa, you know, it's in America as well. You see African American pastors doing the same.
Course,
It's like, wow, they have mansions and so many cars and I'm just thinking, why are people still donating to them? You know, when you see this, don't you see that this person is not doing it for the right reasons? You know,
brainwashed to an
they
extent.
are. I feel like absolutely.
If I may just add another dimension into this as well. I mean, Vanessa have touched a very important area where everybody else is coming out now and having their own church where they can earn more money, a decent money, and to be wealthier. But are they really serving the community? That's what would really interest me more. A reason I've watched a documentary in NPR, and basically is where women were bringing their kids to these pastors, you know, assuming that these kids were possessed with bad spirit. And literally, these kids were abandoned in the street. Some of them have ended up just being killed by their own pastors because they were beating the hell out of them. Actually, there was an exorcism within them, or that they got a bad spirit. So it's not only are they getting wealthier, but again, they're just causing so much damage to young families. And if you don't understand the illness of the child, you can just assume that child is possessed by a bad spirit. And that's been going on within really deep in churches where authorities aren't really close to monitor these churches. And any dubious guy would just come out of nowhere with his own robe, assuming that he's a priest, and start preaching people and collect money and also killing their kids.
And it's especially effective in a place where there's so much hardship, and people really need something like faith and religion to keep them grounded, and for something to hold on to. And it's really one of the most insidious forms of exploitation, to use religion in that form to exploit them. Because me and Kaiya just recently, we went to Ghana. It was my first time there, Kaiya's first time since she was like little. And one of the observations that we made is that every second building within some of the poorest communities was a church. There were people that had absolutely nothing, and their houses were barely houses. But next was this like big super deluxe church right next to it in every single suburb, and like it was unbelievable. And they were just like pristine, and everything around them was just
I think
nothing.
When the religious institute also is held in a higher regard than the education system, there's gaps. And obviously I've been educated to know that if a small child, like I know all about depression or, whatever it is, mental illness, they don't have, I guess, those opportunities to understand that those type of things do occur. And as you said, they'll put the blame on juju or voodoo, black magic, whatever it is. So I think education is also a huge part of it. Because there's gaps in the whole system. You can't even trust leaders.
So Chris, in terms of the African diaspora, do you believe that the benefits of religion outweigh the negatives? Today we've talked about how religion has been used as a tool of oppression or to justify colonialism or slavery. So do you believe that the benefits truly outweigh the negatives?
Definitely not, no. I mean, with my viewpoint of religion, personally, I'm not religious at all. And I see it as psychological warfare to control the masses. Now, that's just my viewpoint. Now, obviously, it can benefit, I guess, on an individual life, with people, who are battling addiction and stuff like that, and they use religion as a tool to sort of get the way out of it. And I see the benefit in that way, but as a whole, no. No.
Right.
Well, the way I look at it, basically, the African diaspora here, particularly in Australia, there's a sense of isolation where there aren't too many of us in here in Australia. So basically, going to the church is a place where we can congregate and share our stories. But considering the isolation part as well, we do have our elderly people as well. They don't have a place where they can go and have their own say, solve the problem within the community. So the spiritual part, and to be able to have a platform where people could go and solve that problem is really, really important. So it's really benefiting the community.
I'm just going to play a little bit of devil's advocate there and just say, there are other things, especially within the societies that we live in now outside of religions, where people are able to kind of go and get those benefits. I mean, unfortunately, I feel as though religion can be used to distort people's vulnerabilities into different things when they are just going to seek community or seek some type of consolation or something like that. And so I'll probably have to try to argue the other hand a little bit for that just to be an asshole.
Yeah, I wanted to add that we always usually confuse actually religion with God.
Yeah.
And those are two very different things. Religion it's a path to God. It's not God, and the goal is always God. And I think there are people who can still go to God without a path, without a religion. I do believe that with all my heart, and I think that's the important thing. And I think that's actually the thing that can benefit people and communities. I think that you should know that even if you don't go to a particular religion or organization, that you always have God. And I think that's something that has been beneficial for me personally, and I think for a lot of people probably.
Right. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for. I'd like to thank our panel for discussing this topic with me today. And we encourage everyone watching at home to continue the discussion as well by using the Say It Loud hashtag on Twitter. Make sure to follow us on all our social media platforms at Say It Loud Show, and we'll see you guys next time.